Today is going to be a little bit random because Natalie and I are running a multitude of errands today, but we are going to go sourcing while we're out running errands. So I think the first thing we're going to do is go get some breakfast, and then I need to pick up food for my chickens because they have gone through everything I've had for them. Alright, we got breakfast, returned our books to the library, got chicken feed and fed the chickens, and now we are on to our thrift day. Morning! So our thrifting trip that day ended up more about spending time with family than it did sourcing and thrifting. Our mom called us after that last thrift store, and I could really tell that she was wanting to hang out. And so Natalie and I put our day on pause, went back home, and spent time with mom that evening, which ended up being a really great day. It wasn't a super great thrifting day that day anyways. I ended up with like some Reader's Digest books and a couple of smalls that I've already put in the booth and have sold. But overall, other than like the hangers that we picked up, the books, it was a day where we didn't really find that much. So instead of a haul, I just got my Q1 sales reports for the booth. I thought it might be helpful to share what actually sold in my booth during Q1. It's something that I track pretty heavily. I also get all of my printouts from Go Antiquing. It's not just important for the money aspect of it, but I think even from a connection standpoint, you get a better idea of the story your booth is telling you and what your shoppers are asking for. January, February, June, and July tend to be lull months for retailers, which definitely transitions pretty heavily into the antiques booth and decor realm. All of the shoppers are coming out of the busyness of the holiday season. A lot of them set larger budgets aside for Christmas and the holidays. And now it's a time that everybody tends to take a break and gear themselves more towards necessities. Some of the trends that we've seen at Grit and Grace so far this year have been furniture, which I think now it's getting to the point where it's starting to slow down for the season. Clothing has been a big one, and smalls, of course. Something that I've noticed working at Grit and Grace every year through the January, February, March season is that we see an increase in furniture sales during those months. Every year we tend to have a bump up in furniture sales at the start of the year. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe it's coming off the holiday season. Everybody had families in the home and they were hosting, and it kind of highlighted those pain points for them in their house of like, this didn't really work in the guest bedroom, or I really needed a bigger table to fit everybody, or our family's expanding, so we need more seating in the living room. I think another reason for that is that Januaries tend to be the time where people are putting their New Year's resolutions in, they're working on organizing their space and getting set up for the year, and there's this energy and buzz around starting fresh, and I think that could also influence what someone's got the zoomies. And I think that could also influence why someone might see an increase in furniture sales. The second thing I've noticed during this time is clothing. For me, I think the reason why clothing becomes such a big deal, it feels like more of a justifiable purchase. It's easier to justify, well, it's cold outside, maybe I need a jacket, or we're going to be transitioning into spring soon, so I'd like a cute skirt or dress. This same process goes for other consumables as well. We're talking food, candles, anything that people kind of go through in their homes on a daily basis. Those things still kind of tend to sell during the first quarter too. All of that definitely reflected in my sales for the months. January was a little bit of a fluke this year. I actually did in gross sales $924.70, which tends to not be the case for January. However, I think I was able to achieve that because I did have a piece of furniture sell. I had a chest of drawers that sold, which definitely fits the furniture moving in the beginning of the year trend. I'd say my most popular items overall that got picked up were my smalls. We had a lot of $7, $3, $1, $4, $5 transactions through here, most of which we see in books. I really enjoy putting a lot of books into the booth, and I put pretty low prices on my books unless it's something that tends to be more collectible. On top of that, we also saw a lot of clothing sales, which again is the number 2 thing that we saw overall in Grit and Grace. And I think that really helps because most of the clothing that Natalie and I end up selling is between the $15 to $30 range, but we do have more expensive items that bump up even into the $75 to $100 range, depending on what it is. And we had a lot of pieces sell for clothing during that time that was $18, $20, $30, and that adds up really quickly. But I did want to mention something that I sold a lot of were ephemera, especially postcards. I had a big bunch of postcards in there that I was selling for $1 a piece, and that can make a difference when someone is picking up 7, 5, 4, and you're slowly adding to your sales for the month. February was much the same. It dropped down quite a bit. We did gross sales of $554.40. A lot of that being decor, which I thought was interesting that month. It might have just been because I did bring in a new haul of items. We had glasses, vases, vintage molds. We had canisters, some ceramic birds, a salt and pepper shaker, and some artwork as well. We did have some clothing pieces thrown in as well, but it was definitely the decor that did the work. For March, we were at $692.15 in gross sales. And the clothing did the heavy lifting this month, especially jackets and coats, which I found really interesting. Especially since March to me feels like a season where you're going out of winter and starting to get into spring. But a lot of those coats did end up selling this month. And because they were coats, a little bit larger, some of them were leather, suede, wool, we ended up seeing a bump up in price because some of them, again, are $50, $30, $45, etc. Overall, between the 3 months, my sales definitely reflected what we talked about earlier in the overall scheme of what we see at Grit and Grace during this time of year. And I will also say that we saw the trend of not as many items selling. So, what really saved me for these months was more medium and high price ranges selling. So, as you can see, one page, and then January is a little bit more, but it's still just a little bit on the second page. So really only one page worth of sales. And so like I think for February we had 49 items total. For March we had 46 items total. And for January we had 76 items, but again, a lot of those were postcards. So 55 total rows of items. Overall, I was really pleased with the first quarter of this year. It's always a nice surprise when you don't have to pay booth rent during the first quarter. And I know going into quarter two, that's not necessarily going to be the story. In my booth space, I have kind of set it aside for a little bit and was really heavily working on the refillery. So we'll have to sit down at the end of quarter two when we get there and see how not being active in my booth space affected my sales, because I know that it will. I'm really curious to know how y'all did in quarter one. Were there any trends that you saw that I didn't mention here, or did you have any items that just really exploded during the first 3 months of the year? Y'all can let me know down in the comment section below. We are going to be gearing up for our summer reset very soon, which I'm super excited to share with y'all. We're going to be doing a lot of work in the booth space because I think it's time for a big change, including restructuring the booth and paint, etc. So make sure to stay tuned by hitting that subscribe button, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.